Hello and welcome to this contract modification walkthrough. Contract modification business process is a process that enables the project team to modify the existing values within a certified contract. Contract modification enables the project team to modify the contract's authorized base contract cost, the contract's authorized direct construction costs, the contract's authorized Type 1 contingency, and the contract duration beyond the initial 10% flex. The contract modification may or may not be linked to existing change order records that aim to use either Type 1 contingency, base contract, money, or the direct construction cost. Let's take a look at our initial contract record. To do so, I have navigated to my test project, and from the business processes on the left navigation pane, I have selected contract. This will show the log of the contract business process. As you can see, I have one approved construction contract within the system. I will double click on the record to take a look at the initial values. From the line items, I can see that the contract was initially authorized for $4 million for general conditions and management fee. I click on the Contract Form tab to enlarge the upper form. Scrolling down to the Commission Award information, I can see the initial contract amount of $4 million was awarded, which we just saw on the line item level. A pre-construction allowance amount of $5 million was awarded, and the initial Type 1 contingency amount of $800K was awarded. This brings the total initial commission award to $9.8 million for this contract. The project team may use the pre-construction allowance amount for enabling construction work. The project team may use the initial Type 1 contingency amount as a funding source for change orders. I will scroll down to review the additional parts of the contract form. Block number 9 shows the contract modifications values. As you can see, none of the monetary figures within the contract have been modified. Block number 10 shows the current contract values. As you can see, these values are identical to the initial contract values. Block number 11 within the contract BP shows the encumbrance information of the contract. For instance, this record indicates that there have been no additional encumbrance beyond the initial 9.8. To close the window, I will click on Close. This table shows the contract monetary figures right after contract certification.
After a certain time from initial contract approval, this project has an approved trade package set for the value of $4.4 million. If we go into the record, we can see that this trade package set is made up of two trade packages. This changes the contract's monetary values. In this project, currently, there is a pending trade package waiting to be approved. The initial contractor's estimate for this trade package is $2 million. If this trade package gets approved, this will create a negative variance in our direct construction costs for the contract.
To start a new contract modification process, first I would have to navigate to my desired project and I would have to find contract modification from a list of business processes on the left navigation pane. The program takes me to the contract modification page and I can see the log. As you can see, there are 5 terminated contract modification records in the system. To start a new contract modification, we'll click on New, and the system would automatically assign me the appropriate workflow. To enlarge the upper form, click on the Contract Modification tab. Each contract modification must reference an existing approved contract record. To select the contract record, click on Select next to the Contract Reference field. Select the desired contract and click on Open. Enter a short description for the mod. Scroll down to see block number 1, Initial Contract Information. This block includes information about the vendor and the initial controller number, the initial commission award, and the initial schedule. Block number 2, Previous Modifications, shows the summary of all the previous modifications in the system. Block number 3 asks the user to enter amounts regarding the current modification. There are 2 main segments to this block. The top 2 fields aim to modify the contract's schedule, whereas the bottom 4 fields aim to modify the contract's monetary figures. For our example, we are going to ask for some additional construction and some additional Type 1 contingency money. To do so, specify the requested amount in the requested direct construction costs. Specify the increase in the Type 1 contingency. Scroll down. Block number 4 shows the contract's anticipated values. We can see that the base contract money will remain 4 million, whereas the anticipated direct construction costs will have an additional 3 million to the original 5 and will have an amount of 8. Same with Type 1 contingency, we are aiming to modify it. As you can see, with our current modification, we have managed to keep the contingency percentage more or less the same. Anticipated total contract amount shows the summary of all the above. Block number 5 shows the reference information. It aims to capture the commission resolution information for the contract modification. It aims to capture the Board of Supervisors resolution information for the contract modification if applicable. It also aims to capture any contract funding request information associated with the CMOD if available. Fill the applicable fields in the reference information block. Enter a description for the contract modification. To authorize the budget for trade package number 3 and additional contingency to cover the extra cost. Please note that a contract modification can be a result of multiple trade package or change order records. Block number 7 exhibits verification questions, and it asks whether or not you have the following documents attached to this contract modification. All the questions must be answered using the pull down. You can either specify yes, no, or not applicable. Currently, I am filling this form as a PM. In the sign-off block, enter any approval notes and specify date. All the monetary objects within the contract modification must be itemized in the detail form. To enter the itemized amount, click on Standard to expand the detail form. To add a new item, click on Add. This will open a new window. Type or select a WBS code using the WBS picker. For this specific contract modification, we are asking for an additional 3 million for construction. You can attach the scoping documents or link existing records within the unifier to the line item. We're going to add our contingency item as well. We can add attachments to the record or link this contract modification to existing trade packages or change orders. As you can see, the total amount in the line items equals the total requested modifications on the upper form. To submit the record, from the top right, under Workflow Actions, select Submit. To review the action, click on Action Details, and you can see that the system automatically will route this record to Section Review. Click on Send to submit the record. The contract modification has been successfully submitted. Once the contract modification record is submitted, it will go to the section, then the branch, and then the deputy director for approvals. Once the deputy director approves the contract modification, the record will get sent to the CMU. The CMU then will perform a review. As you can see, the record is sent for CMU review. And if I want to take a look at the workflow, we can see that after the record initiation, it has gone through the section, the branch, the AD, and now sits within the CMU. Once the CMU recommends approval, it will get to accounting and get certified. To accept the task, we'll click on Accept Task on the upper menu. To enlarge the upper form, I will click on the Contract Modification tab. I can review the initial contract information, previous modifications, the current modification, the anticipated contract values, the reference information, the verification questions, and this is where the CMU would enter the review notes. Scrolling down, you can see that the CMU also has access for entering the encumbered amount and the contract modification controller number if those information are available. To send the contract mod to accounting, the CMU would recommend approval from the workflow actions. You can see that the record is automatically being routed to accounting. To submit the record, now the record sits with accounting for certification. The accounting will open the record, accept the task, review the upper form information, review any attachments or general comments within the record, see the approval notes from each of the parties, enter the review notes, and enter the date of the review, enter the additional encumbrance associated with the mod, enter the controller's number, and review the contract fund encumbrance summary. As you can see, our contract started at 9.8. It had an additional encumbrance of 0 before this modification, and the current encumbered funds are 9.8. But as you can see, the anticipated contract encumbrance includes the additional 1 million that is going to be encumbered via this contract modification record. The accounting can either certify, reject, or revise the contract mod. Once the contract modification is certified, the amounts within the contract mod will become effective, and those funds will be available for use in change orders and trade package authorizations. As you can see, the contract mod is approved. Going back to our original contract record, Going back to our original contract record, we can review the mods directly from the contract. As you can see, there's a tab called Contract Modifications that displays all the contract modifications associated with the contract. One out of all of these contract modifications are approved. To review the upper form, you can see block number 9, contract modification, is automatically populated by the latest mod numbers. In addition to the numbers, we can see the latest actions taken and the latest contract modification record number. For this instance, the latest action is certification by accounting. The current values show the current substantial completion, the current final completion, the current base contract amount, the current direct construction amount, which has been increased, current modified type 1 contingency, and the current contingency percentage. In addition to that, we can see the encumbrance information, and we can see that in addition to the original 9.8, we have an additional 1 million encumbrance, which brings the total encumbered funds to 10.8. And we have still 2.25 in unencumbered funds. And we can see the latest controller number associated with these numbers on the main contract form as well. Now that the contract mod is approved, the team can go on with the trade package authorization. Here's a summary of the contract changes in our sample. We started at the top left with the initial values and no modifications. We started spending direct construction money, and then we got to a point that we didn't have enough direct construction money for additional trade package authorizations. And the last figure shows the contract after modification with sufficient construction money to authorize additional trade packages.